What's up, y'all? My name is Mr. Canada and welcome to my math domain. In this video, we're going to be talking about solving proportions and learning how to set up proportions from a word problem. So, let's go ahead and get started. So what are proportions to begin with? Proportions are basically two fractions that are equal in value, and proportions are super useful in that it helps us calculate new quantities based on the ratio of the old quantities. So if you ever ask yourself the question of, when exactly am I ever going to use this in real life? This is probably one of those math topics that you will use in real life. Anytime that you cook, anytime that you bake something, you have to look at a recipe book. And anytime that you want to make more of something, like let's say you want to make more pancakes, you're going to need more pancake batter. But in order to make more pancake batter, you need more eggs, you need more milk, you need more flour, you need more of everything. Proportions help you in that way because they'll help you calculate quickly how much of everything you need. Same can be said if you're trying to plan a party. If you know that a certain amount of chips or drinks will get through a certain number of people, then setting up a proportion will quickly tell you how much more of something you need to satisfy your party people. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's learn how to solve a proportion. So what's the idea with solving a proportion? Well, solving a proportion is actually pretty simple. Basically, you have to use this one tactic called cross multiplication. And the idea behind cross multiplication is basically you're going to multiply the numbers that are across from each other in both of your fractions. So for example, look at this one right here. Basically, if you want to solve this proportion, which actually, by the way, is really just a linear equation, what you're going to do is that you're going to take the multiplication, the product of the numbers that are across. Now from here, what you're going to do is just ask yourself, well, what's 10 times x? Well, in this case, 10 times x is just 10x. The next part what you're going to do is that you're going to multiply across over here, 20 times 35. Now you can either do this mentally, by hand, or using a calculator, but when you multiply 20 times 35, you'll get 700. Now the only thing you have to do from this step forward is this. You have to solve the equation for x. Now this is a one-step equation, and the only thing you have to do on both sides to solve this is just divide both sides by 10. So when you divide both sides by 10, this simplifies out. X equals 700 divided by 10. It's just going to be 70. So that's basically the idea of how you solve a proportion. Now this example wasn't too bad. It was pretty simple because every single part of your fraction had one piece. But what should you do in case that you happen to have a proportion with an expression, like for example, two pieces in the denominator or numerator? Let's go ahead and find out. So look at this example. Now, you'll immediately notice that the thing that's different is that you have x minus 10. So the first thing you should do is not panic. And as a matter of fact, keep the same steps, keep it super simple like how we did it before. So what we're going to do is that we're going to multiply across 8 and x minus 10. So when you multiply these two, it is super important that you take this 8 and you multiply it to both the x and the 10. Think of it like the distributive property because that's exactly what's happening here. You are distributing that 8 to both pieces. So 8 times x is going to be 8x. 8 times 10 is going to be 80, so minus 80 equals, now all you have to do now is multiply across this part, 10 times 18. So 10 times 18 is going to be 180. Now this is going to be a two-step equation. So using your inverse operations, what we're going to do is that we're going to add 80 to both sides because it's the opposite of subtraction. This creates a zero pair. In other words, it just cancels out. All we're left with is 8x equals 180 plus 80 is 260. And now all we're going to do from here is just divide both sides by 8. Now I'm going to cheat here a little bit because I don't know how to get this one fairly quickly mentally, so I'm going to use my super duper secret calculator that you can't see on the screen. And it's okay if you've been using one too. So 260 divided by 8 is going to get me 32.5. Awesome. So that means that my final answer will be 32.5. So that means x is equal to 32.5. So what was different here that you should do differently if you see it? Basically, just make sure that when you are cross multiplying, that anything that has an expression, like in this case, x minus 10, make sure that you multiply both pieces by the number across. That's really the only thing you have to look out for. Now, how exactly do we take a word problem and set up a proportion out of it? Well, it's actually fairly simple. So earlier I said that proportions are super useful because it helps us calculate new quantities based on the value of an old quantity, a ratio of an old quantity. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So anytime that they give you a word problem and you're asking yourself, well, first of all, how do I even know if it's a proportion? Well, you should look for this phrase right here. The phrase varies directly. Basically, that's a very, very technical math language of saying that's a proportion. And basically the idea is, if something varies directly, that means as x goes up, so does y, or as x goes down, so does y. It's sort of like if you were to make more pancakes, then you need more eggs, milk, and flour in order to increase that pancake amount, right? So that's basically what varies directly is trying to say. So how does that idea of old values to new values going to help us here? Well, basically how I like to think of it is old x has something to do with old y, and then say new x has something to do with new y. And the reason why I write it out this way is because more often than not, I'm going to be able to clear or fill in 3 of those spots. But let's go ahead and see it in action to see what I mean by that. So the value of y varies directly with x. If x equals 3, then y equals 21. This is the kind of connection that you want to look for. Something that tells you that when x equals this, then y equals that. That's going to be your old x and your old y. So something that I'm going to do here is say this. When x equals 3, then y equals 21. This is my old x of 3, my old value of y as 21. And now all you're going to do from here is try to figure out, did they give me a new x value and did they give me a new y value? Let's go ahead and keep reading. What is the value of x when y is equal to 105? This time they're asking for the value of x. So that means they gave you the value of y. So that is your new y. And the question becomes, well, what is this number over here? And this is where the proportion comes in. Because all you have to do from here is basically draw your fraction signs like this. And there you go. It's a nicely set up proportion. The reason why I always set it up this way is because it's easy to make your ratios right off the bat. So then you're not second guessing yourself of, well, did I put the numbers in the right spots? So if you do it this way every time, then you are setting up the proportion right every single time. The only thing you have to just look out for is, what are my old numbers and which of the new numbers did they give me in this problem? So now, how do we actually solve this problem? Well, the proportion is going to be 3 times 105, which is going to be 315, equals 21 times the missing value, which in this case I'm just going to say that it's going to not be question mark. I'm going to say that it's going to be x, just to make the math a little bit more easy to understand. So 21 times x is going to be 21x. So then from here, all I have to do is solve the equation by dividing both sides by 21, which I'm going to use my secret calculator again. And if you want to use yours too, you can. So 315 divided by 21 is going to get me 15. So that means that the new value of x is going to be x equals 15. So recap. If you want to make your life super duper simple, all you have to do is this. Ask yourself, what's the old x value and the old y value? You want to establish that connection immediately. So look for any information like this right here, where it's x equals 3, then y equals 21. Look for that information right off the bat. And then, to set up the bottom parts of each fraction, ask yourself, which value did they give me? Did they give me x or did they give me y? In this case, they gave you y. You put it at the bottom, then you cross multiply to solve. Let's go ahead and do it one more time. The total distance in centimeters a toy robot moves varies directly, okay, so this is going to be a proportion problem, with the time in seconds. The toy robot moves a total distance of 264 centimeters in 11 seconds. Here you go. Notice how they're establishing that connection right off the bat, so that's going to be important. what is the time in seconds the toy robot moves when the total distance is 408 centimeters? Okay, so they tell you that the robot moves 264 centimeters in 11 seconds. So what you need to figure out now is what's my new centimeters and what's my new seconds. So this is my old, and I want to figure out, well, what's my new? Well, they don't give me a new seconds because the question is asking for the total distance is 408. So all we know is that centimeters for the new one is going to be 408, but we don't know anything about the new time. So that means that the missing value should be the seconds. So now from here, we're going to go ahead and cross multiply. 408 times 11 should get you 4488 equals, we're going to go ahead and cross multiply over here, equals 264x. And now to solve this problem, we're going to divide both sides by 264. And the value is going to be, let's go ahead and use our super duper secret calculator. So 4488 divided by 264 is going to get me 17. So that means that my value here is going to be x equals 17. It's going to take this robot 17 whole seconds to travel that amount. Well, I hope you guys learned something new today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And like always, please take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.